Hello, this is Mr. Henry, and this is lesson 3.3, solving multi-step equations. Today we're looking at solving more than two steps. So, if you remember yesterday, or in the last lesson, we made a list of 5 different steps to solve an equation. Today we're going to look at all 5 of those steps. Okay, so let's start by looking at some of our get-the-goofs. These are all two-step equations. So the first problem here, the variable has this 6 that's being subtracted from it, and this 5. Well, remember, this 6 out front, it's not 6 minus, or it's not a minus 6. You don't read the problem this way. This 6, to make it go away, we have to subtract 6. This is a negative 5, not a minus 6. So we minus 6 on this side, we get a negative 5p equals 15. Then we divide by negative 5 here, divide by negative 5 there. These cancel, and p would equal 15 divided by negative 5 is a negative 3. Number 2. 3r minus 9r, those two can combine together and give us 6r. And then we're going to divide by 6 on both sides. These cancel. Negative 12 divided by 6 is a negative 2. Number 3. Variables being multiplied by 4 and subtracted by 4, so we're going to add 4 here, add 4 there. These cancel. We get 4m equals 40. And hopefully you know the answer to that off the top of your head, because when you're going to divide both sides by 4, divide by 4, these cancel. M equals this, gives us 10. Number 4. Let's bump down a little bit here. So the variable is being divided by 2, so you times by 2, times by 2, cancel. H equals 16. Alright, so those are all this was actually a one-step, but those were two-step equations. And we're going to see how we get up into like 3 steps, and 4 steps, and 5 steps. We do got 3 vocabulary. These, I think, are the same for the last lesson. Like terms are terms that have the exact same variable. Yeah, I do remember that one from the last lesson. And reciprocal is from the last lesson. It's the upside down form of a number. I don't think the distributive property was on the last lesson. The distributive property is when you multiply the outside number by all the terms on the inside, and that's talking about when you have parentheses. This is how we're going to get rid of parentheses. So if you had, say, 3 times x plus 5, you take the 3 times the x, the 3 times the 5, you'd get 3x plus 15. That's the distributive property. And you'll notice that when we do this, the parentheses are gone. Okay? So, solve. Let's go through and we'll write our 5 steps out. So we need step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if you remember from before, step 2 was combine like terms on each side. Oops. On each side. Alright, so we combine like terms on each side. That's when you combine the things that have the same variable together like we did here. That's combining like terms. Should that be a negative 6? Negative 6? Negative 6, making that a positive 2? Maybe you caught that and I didn't. And step 4 was get rid of other terms by add and subtract. Step 5 was get rid of coefficients by multiply and divide. Okay, we knew all that already. That's what we did in lesson 3.2. But now, step 1. The first thing we're going to do is if you see parentheses, we need to get rid of them, almost like in the order of operations. But we're not going to do the math inside the parentheses. We're going to distribute to get rid of parentheses. So we're going to say get rid of parentheses by distributing. Okay, so we're getting rid of all those parentheses by distributing. And I guess while we're here, we'll fill in step 3 as well. Step 3 will take place if you have a variable on both sides of the equal sign. We're going to get rid of the variable from the right. I'm thinking of how to write this down. If both sides have the same variable, get rid of the one on the right. There we go. Bump, 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 bump. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Those are the 5 steps. And those 5 steps will actually solve, I'd call it, it's almost 90% of equations out there. If you follow those steps in order, it will solve like 90% of the equations you're going to come up against. Sometimes you're not going to have step 2, sometimes you might not have a step 4, but if you start at the top and you always get rid of your parentheses, then you always combine like terms, and you always get rid of the variables on the right-hand side, then you get rid of the add and subtract, then the multiplies and divides, that's going to solve most equations. Now, you might be asking, well, why do we get rid of the one on the right? Honestly, it's a personal preference. I like to get rid of the one on the right. You can always get rid of the one on the left. The point is you want to have one variable. You don't want to have a variable like a 3g on this side of the equal sign and a 4g minus 5 on this side. Okay, so when you get rid of the one on the right, you just minus 4g minus 4g. These cancel. You get a negative 1g plus 2 equals negative 5. Most people like to have their variable on this side of the equal sign. That's why we get rid of the one on the right. Okay, so now let's see some problems. So we're going to solve these multi-step problems. First things first, get rid of them parentheses. So, draw your rainbows. This is a negative 2. So negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Negative 2 times negative 1 is a positive 2. Step 1, done. Parentheses gone. Step 2, combine like terms. So you look at each side of the problem. Is there anything here I can combine together? Yes. 5x minus 2x. I can get rid of those two things. So 5x minus a 2x is a 3x. By the way, you notice how I'm keeping everything like kind of nicely lined up? It helps out your organization a lot. Keep your equal signs right under the other equal signs. Keep these 8s under the 8s. Keep the 2 under the 2. This should be the only things that's changing. Okay, step 3 was, if you have a variable on both sides. Well, I don't. I only have one x, only one variable, so I don't have to worry about step 3. Step 4, get rid of the other terms, that's him, by adding and subtracting. So my variable is being added by 2, so I subtract 2. 3x equals 6. And get rid of multiplies and divides. Divide by 3, divide by 3. These cancel. X equals 2. So that was 4 steps, I believe. Parentheses, combine like terms, add and subtract, multiply and divide. Yeah, that was 4 steps. Not terribly hard, though. Okay, let's see. Letter B. Parentheses. So you got to get rid of my distributing. 4g plus 8 minus 2g equals 12. Keep everything lined up. Combine like terms. Well, nothing to combine over here. Over here I've got a 4g and a minus 2g. It's okay they're separated by the 8. I can still combine. If you have 4 on this side and a minus 2 on this side, 4 and a minus 2 combined together gives you 2g. Now this is a two-step. We're going to get rid of the add and subtract, then the multiply and divide. So we're minus 8, we get 2g equals 4, divide by 2, g equals 2. Alright, letter C. We got parentheses, so we distribute. 2 times m is 2m, 2 times negative 8 is negative 16, negative 3m plus. Alright, combine like terms. That we can combine. That gives us negative 1m, and there's nothing to combine over on this side. You always do check both sides for combine like terms. Do I have variables on both sides? Nope, only this one. So, start moving on. We don't have to do the get rid of the variable on the right side. So we're going to add 16, negative 1m equals 42. And now, this is something that you might not have seen before. This variable is being multiplied by a negative 1. So you divide by negative 1. You get m equals, and 42 divided by negative 1 is a negative 42. Okay. Letter D. Distribute. Negative 6 times this stuff. So take a negative 6 times the h, and negative 6 times the 2. So when I do, we have, let's see, negative 6h minus 12 equals 18. Combine like terms. H minus 6h is minus 5h. There's one h there. If you don't see a number in front of the variable, it means there's one of them. So 1 minus 6 is minus 5. And there's your minus 12 equals 18. Nothing to combine on this side. Now, we do not have variables on both sides, so we don't have to worry about step 3. Step 4, get rid of our adds and subtracts. So we're going to plus 12 plus 12. These cancel. Minus 5h equals, again, this is the multiply, that's the add and subtract. 20, this gives us 30. And the way we get rid of a times by negative 5 is we divide by negative 5. Divide by negative 5, h equals negative 6. So now we've done 4 of these. You'll see they're not really too terribly bad. It's the same stuff over and over again. They look ugly, but you notice each step you do, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller and easier to do. So, I'd like you to do these 4, please. Pause the video, copy them down, do them. When you're ready, hit play. Okay, let's do them. So let's change color here, and we're going to distribute. So we're going to take that times that times that. That gives us 2d plus 6 equals 9, negative d plus. A negative d and a positive 2d give us 1d plus 6 equals 9. I'm going to get rid of my add and subtract, so I have minus 6, 1d equals 3. Now, think about this. Do I really have to divide by 1? If I divide by 1 here and say, okay, those cancel out, divide by 1 here, 3 divided by 1 is still 3. There's no need to do that. Every time you have just a 1 in front of the variable like this, you can just kind of get rid of it, ignore it, erase it. That's done. Letter F. Let's see, distribute, distribute. That gives us 42 minus a 24y equals 18. Now again, this is not a minus 42. It's a negative 24. The sign sticks with a number after it. Positive 6, positive 2, negative 1. So the way we're going to get rid of this 42 is we have to subtract it away. In case you didn't notice, there is no combining like terms. Negative 24y equals 40, negative 42 and 18. Let's check here. Clear, clear, clear. 18 minus 42 equals negative 24. Now, the way we get rid of the multiply by negative 24 is we divide by negative 24, divide by negative 24, and y equals 1. Letter G. Get rid of our parentheses by distributing. We get 20g minus 16. No combining like terms, because I don't have more than one variable. I don't have variables on both sides. Down to step 4, get rid of my add and subtract. So I add 16, these cancel out. We get 20g, and that's a 6. That gives us 40. The way you get rid of a multiply by 20 is you divide by 20, divide by 20, and g equals 2. Letter H. This one looks really ugly and complicated, but after you do like the first step or two, you see it's really not that bad. So we're going to start by distributing. That gives us 4g plus 4. Copy down the rest of the problem. Okay, combine like terms. Well, we got a 4g and a 2g that can combine together. That gives us 6g. We've got a plus 4 and a minus 4 that can combine together. What's plus 4 and minus 4 give you? 0. So you could really say, if you really wanted to, plus 0, but what's the point? Oopsie. There's no point in doing plus 0. It's just 6g equals 24. So when we were combining like terms, this guy here and that guy there canceled out. Now we divide by 6, g equals 4. Hopefully you had some success. If not, you got some couple more good examples to look through, see how it's pretty much the same pattern. Get rid of the parentheses, combine like terms. So far we haven't had variables on both sides. They're coming up. But then you get rid of the adds and subtracts, the multiplies and divides, and we're done. Please do example on page 149, numbers 1 through 3, and I have them up here as well. Please do these 3 problems right now. Pause the video. When you're ready to continue, hit play, and we'll go over them together. Alright, let's see. There's no parentheses. I can combine like terms. I've got 2 of the same variable on the same side of the problem. That gives me a 7d plus 4 equals 32. I don't have variables on both sides, so then I'm down to get rid of add and subtract. Minus 4 cancels 7d equals 32. Minus 4 is 28. Divide by 7, d equals 4. Number 2, we do have parentheses, so I distribute here. We get 3w plus 12 equals 27, and 2w, it's a positive. Combine like terms gives us 5w plus 12 equals 27. There's no variables on both sides. Then we minus 12 here, minus 12 there. 5w equals 15. This is a times by 5, so we divide by 5, cancel, w equals 3. Alright, number 3, we're going to take this negative 2 and distribute. So that gives us 6x and a negative 2x. That's this times this. And the negative 2 times negative 5 is a positive 10. Combine like terms. 6x minus 2x is 4x. Plus 10 equals 46. And we do not have variables on both sides, so no step 3. We do have adds and subtracts, so we get rid of the add using a subtract. Minus 10, cancel. 4x equals 46 minus 10 is 36. Divide by 4, because that's the opposite of this, times by 4, cancel, x equals 9. Alright, now, we're going to see what happens if we get some of this fraction business inside here. It makes the problem a little bit more difficult, but not a whole lot. Now, the first thing I'm going to tell you, if you try to work ahead and you try to distribute this, the first thing you saw is you got some really ugly numbers. Don't copy this down. I'm going to erase this in a second, but I'm going to show you what happens if you actually distribute. You'd actually distribute this. You'd get 6/5 x minus 12/5 equals 18. And look how terribly ugly that is. We don't want that. There's something else we can do. We can actually get rid of this thingy here first. Do you remember how we got rid of the fractions before? We did this thing called multiplying by the reciprocal. So if we take this times by 5/3, that is a 5. 5/3, the numerator and denominator cancel. Numerator, denominator cancel. So this whole thing canceled out. We're left with just 2x minus 4 equals, and on this side, let's see, 18 times 5 is 90. 3 times 1 is 3, and if we simplify this, we get 30. 90 divided by 3 is 30. So now we have 2x minus 4 equals 30. That we can do. That's something we know how to do. We've done a bazillion of them almost. So we get rid of this subtract by 4 by add by 4. 2x equals, what's that, 34. Divide by 2, divide by 2. X equals 34 divided by 2, 17. Okay, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to get rid of this first by multiplying by the reciprocal, not distributing. Distributing gives us ugly fractions in the problem, which we really don't want. If we can avoid them, we will. So if we multiply this by the reciprocal, 2/3, cancel, 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 multiply by 2/3, we get on this side, just the 3x plus 5. On this side, let's see, I'm going to do the math over here. 2/3 times 24 over 1. That gives us 48. 3 times 1 is 3. 48 divided by 3, I think, is 16. Let's check. 48 divided by 3. All right, look at that, 16. So this math just gives us 16. Now we've got an easier problem to do. This is a two-step. We've got the variables being multiplied by something and added by something. Get rid of the add and subtract first. 3x equals 11. Divide by 3. Divide by 3. And oopsie, I forgot this is a negative 16, which instead of being an 11 here, gives us a negative 21, which now when we divide by 3 works out. So negative 21 divided by 3, now we get x equals a negative 7. The reason why this is negative, for those who don't see, is because this was a negative 24. So when we took the 2/3 times a negative 24, a positive times a negative should give us a negative answer. I just didn't carry my sign through. Okay. Please try these two problems, copy them down, pause the video, do them on your own. When you're ready to hit play and check over them, do it. Alright, let's see what we got. I'm going to times by 2 over 1 times by 2 over 1. Cancel, 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 cancel. It's all gone. So I get 4x minus 10 equals 3 times 2 over 1. Well, that's going to be a 6 over 1, which is just 6. Multiply the tops, multiply the bottoms. I'm going to then add 10, add 10. We get 4x equals 16, divide by 4, divide by 4, x equals 4. Yes, I'm going a little quick, but we've done a whole bunch of these, and you should have already done your problems before you hit play. Let's see, get rid of this guy. So I'm going to times by 4/3, cancel, 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 times by 4/3. Do the math up here. 9 over 1 times by 4 over 3 gives me 36 over 3, and that does simplify into 12. So now we have this. This math is there, and the answer simplified is there. Okay, now we got a two-step. We're going to get rid of the add and subtract, so I minus 6. Minus 6, we get negative 2x equals, that gives us 6. Divide by negative 2, divide by negative 2, and x equals, a little bit more space, x equals a negative 3. There we go. So we've done 4 of these now. I'm going to give you a couple problems out of the textbooks. Here's numbers from page 149, numbers 4, 5, and 6. Again, pause the video, try them on your own. When you're ready to continue, hit play, and we'll go through them together. Alright, let's see what we got. We're going to distribute that. Oopsie, I lied. We are not going to distribute. My hand started working before my brain did. We're going to multiply by 4/3. Multiply by 4/3. So cancel, 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 cancel. We don't want fractions. We get z minus 6 equals, and 12 times 4/3. And I'll do it over here. 12 over 1 times 4 over 3. So doing this math here. That gives you 48. That gives you 3. And I think we did this division earlier. That was 16. So this math is equal to 16. Now when we add 6, my variable is being subtracted by 6. So you add it to get it away. Cancel. Z equals 22. Number 5. We're going to multiply by 5 over 2. Multiply by 5 over 2. Cancel, 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 cancel. It's all gone. We get 3r plus 4 equals, in this math, let's see, 10 over 1 times a 5 over 2 gives us a 50 over 2, and 50 divided by 2 is 25. So there's the math, there's the answer. Now we've got two steps. We're going to get rid of this add 4 by subtract 4. Subtract 4, we get 3r equals 25 minus 4 is 21. Divide by 3 to get rid of the multiply by 3. Cancel, r equals 7. lastly, we're going to multiply by a negative 5/4. Cancel, cancel, gone. Multiply by a negative 5/4. Let's see, 28 over 1 times by a negative 5/4 equals 28 times 5. Let's see, 28 times 5 equals negative 125 divided by 4. How many times does 4 go into that? We're going to take that guy and divide by 4. 31.25. Well, I really don't want a decimal. We can do a little bit of dividing. Wait, 28 times 5 equals... I thought something was wrong. I thought it should divide a little bit. So somehow I typed something in wrong. This should be 140, not 125. I did 25 times 5. Now, when I divide by 4, I'm going to get 140 divided by 4 does work out, so that's 35. So this stuff, the math is there, the answer is there. Negative 35 equals 4a minus 1. That's ugly. UGLY. Let's see, plus 1, we get 4a equals, these cancel. 35 plus 1, no, negative 35 plus 1 gives a negative 34. Divide by 4, and this is going to give us a fraction. That doesn't divide evenly. So 4 goes into 34. First off, the answer is negative. 8 times at 32 with a remainder of 2 over 4. And if we simplify, we get 8 equals negative 8 and 1/2. That is what we get. All right. Hard stuff, no doubt, but it's not terribly hard as long as you follow those same 5 steps in order with this other little bit of trickiness with the fractions, how you get rid of them first but don't distribute them. And you're going to see that in all math. All math, there's rules, and then there's always times you break the rules. So here we broke the rules. We didn't get rid of the parentheses by distributing, like we have in our rules. We got rid of those parentheses, not that page, about that page. We got rid of those parentheses by just getting rid of the thing out front that's multiplying by it. Alright, now we got ourselves a couple little wordy problems. Let's see how this goes. A flock of crane migrates to Canada from Texas. Okay. The cranes take 14 days, which is 336 hours, to travel 2,500 miles. The cranes fly at an average speed of 25 miles per hour. How many hours of migration are the cranes not flying? Okay, well, first off, to me, this sounds like a distance formula because we have distance, we have a speed, time. So let's start there. D equals little d. D equals RT. Distance. They need to travel 2,500 miles. I cannot write today. 2,500 miles. Rate. How fast are you going? The cranes fly, so this is our distance. Miles per hour. That's their speed. So that's our rate. Going 25. And we want to know, we can't just put in the 14 in there because we don't know if this actually works out. Is 25 times 14 that? 25 times 14 is not 2,500. Is 25 times the 336 that? No. That's not what we're supposed to do. We're not just supposed to throw in this amount of time in there. It's saying how many hours are the cranes not flying. So think about it. If they're going for 14 days, those birds have to stop. This is just their average speed over the entire trip. So what we can do is we can go like this, something a little bit tricky. We can say, okay, they were flying for 336 hours minus x. This is the time that they were not flying. So this is, you can call it maybe like sleeping. So the 336 hours is the total trip minus whatever they're sleeping. So really this stuff over here is how much they're actually flying. This other guy is just their time that they're sleeping. Okay? So let's solve. We can solve this by distributing. It's a little ugly if we do, but let's see. We get 336 times 25. Ooh-wee. 336 times 25 I did here already. That's 8400 minus 25x equals 2500. Alright, and then we just solve this thing. So we're going to subtract 8400 minus 8400. We get negative 25x, and 2500 minus 8400 equals 5900. And then we divide both sides by negative 25 because that was a multiply, so the opposite is divide. Divide by negative 25, and we get x equals, we're going to get some big number. Divide by 25, and I don't have a negative button. Just know that the answer here is going to be a positive. 236. So that's the x is the amount of time that they were sleeping. Or you could also think about it as the time that they were not flying. Okay? So again, this total time that we put in here, we don't want the entire time of the trip with them eating and sleeping and flying and whatever else birds do when they're taking a trip, stopping and get popcorn or whatever. So that's this total time, but we don't want the whole thing. We want to know just the part of the time that they were actually flying. So here's the whole trip minus the time that they were sleeping or eating or whatever else they're doing. So if we subtract that piece out, what would be left with is just the actual flying time. But since we didn't know what the sleeping time was, we just left it as a variable. When we did our little bit of solving here, we found that they were actually sleeping or eating whatever else for 236 of the 336 hours. Okay? And that's what we got. That's the amount of time that they were not flying. Flying minus the sleeping, that's their total time of actual flight. Okay? A little complicated, but we'll see another example that's very similar, and then you'll have one more like this. It's very similar. Letter B. Edmund took a 7-day, 168-hour, 90-mile canoe trip down the Allagash River. If they paddled for an average of 25 miles per hour, so that's our speed, that's our rate. This is a time. This is a distance. How many hours do they spend not paddling? Okay. So if you ever take a canoe trip, you're like on your canoe and you go for a while, and then after you're in the water for a while, you stop paddling and just kind of let the water take you a little bit. Okay? Well, we want to know how long were they not paddling. So we've got our distance formula. Yeah, I'll do it as a big D this time. Distance. Well, the distance doesn't change. The distance is 90 miles. Okay? The rate doesn't change. The rate is this 2.5 miles per hour. But the time, there was some time where they were actually paddling down the river. There was times paddle. There was time they were paddling. There was time they were just sitting there. Maybe they took out their fishing poles and they're fishing and they're eating and they're doing whatever else they're doing. Maybe they stop and camp. They're out there for 7 days. They have to stop at some point. Okay, so we want to know how much time did they spend not paddling. So this time that they took, the whole trip was 168 hours. But for this speed, this 2.5 miles per hour, that's just the time they're actually paddling. So if we subtract out the other stuff, and that would be like this eating, sleeping, all the time that they're not paddling. That's how we fit it into this formula. Now, if we find out what this x is, that's the total amount of time they were not paddling. So now we solve. So we take 2.5 times that. Let's see, 2.5. No, that's not what I said. 2.5 times 168 equals 420 minus 2.5x equals 90. Solve it. This is a positive 420, so we subtract 420 here, subtract 420 here, negative 2.5x, let's see, 90 minus 420. 90 minus 420, negative 330. This is a multiply by a negative 2.5. So if we divide by a negative 2.5, divide by negative 2.5, first off, our answer will be a positive because the negatives cancel. So if we take 330 divided by 2.5, 2.5 equals 132. And that is the amount of time they were doing all the other stuff, the time they spent not paddling, eating, sleeping, camping, whatever else. All right. So we used our distance formula. We said our time is the time paddling, or this is the total time, I guess. The 168 is the total time. Total time minus the other stuff, which would leave just the paddling left over. We solve, and we found that the x, the other stuff, was 132 hours. Okay, I have one problem like this for you to do out of the textbook. You'll find it here. It says, suppose the cranes take 12 days to travel 2,500 miles. How many hours of migrations are the cranes not flying? So in our problem, they took 14 days. What happens if they only took 12? Pause the video, try it out on your own. When you're ready to hit play, do it, and we'll continue from there. Okay, so we've got our distance formula. D equals RT. Distance is the 2,500 miles. The rate was 2.5. I remember that was the rate from before. Oopsie. We're here to there. So the rate, there, 25 miles per hour. I was slightly wrong. There you go. 25 miles per hour. And the time, this time they're taking 12 days, or 288 hours. So the total trip minus all the other stuff leaves just the time they're actually flying. And we solve. We're going to distribute here. That's going to give us 25 minus 25x. And 25 times 288 equals 7,200. Then we subtract our 7,200 from both sides. Minus 7,200. And let's see. 2,500 minus 7,200 equals negative 4,700. And to get our variable by itself, because it's multiplied by negative 25, we divide by negative 25. And we get x equals, because cancel, cancel. And on this side, a negative divided by a negative cancel. And 4,700 divided by 25 equals 188 hours. So the birds were not flying for 188 hours this time. All right. So that's the entire lesson. What in our little summary box, how do you solve multi-step equations? Put down a sentence, a little summary, some way that you've learned today to solve these multi-step equations. What do you do? Here's what I do. I think my answer is those 5 steps. 2, 3, 4, 5. So you get rid of parentheses by distributing. Number 2, you combine like terms. Step 3, we didn't even do step 3 today. There were no variables today, or no problems that had variables on both sides, but looking ahead, I see that's actually the very next lesson. But step 3 is get rid of the variables on both sides, or get rid of the variable on the right. Step 4 was get rid of add and subtract. And last, get rid of multiply and divide. That's how you solve multi-step equations. And there is your homework. So it comes from pages 150 and 152. Number 1 and 3 through 24 multiples of 3. For those who don't know the multiples of 3, that's like 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 questions for homework. And if you do 33 and 34, both of them are worth extra credit. You can do one, you can do both of them. It's up to you. All right. It's Mr. Henry, and this has been lesson 3.3. Thank you. Bye-bye.